So, welcome, welcome. I'm Chris. I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber. We are pleased to have you here. We're pleased to have you join us. We hope this will be an enjoyable event and informative. Of course, we're very grateful to have Assemblywoman Cristina Garcia with us today. Traditionally, she's done a State of the State address, tend to be about summertime, I think, that was traditionally delivered, and a legislative update. So, obviously COVID has thrown a wrench in a lot of things, and we're here in this virtual environment. So we are pleased to have her. I'm looking forward to the conversation. But first, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. You're all going to be muted now. When we get to the Q&A, right now it looks like you have the ability to unmute yourself, but I'm going to try to remove that so we don't have people talking over each other, just for an easy way to get through this meeting and questions to be answered. We take advantage of our time. So let's see, I'm going to be, the way it's set up, I'm going to ask you to submit questions to the chat. I'll remind you when we get there, and I'll be reading some selected questions. Now, if I don't get to all of the questions, it's not because I am deliberately dodging you. What I will try to do is after the meeting, if you don't hear your question answered, I'm going to try to connect with you offline and get you the answer. No reason why we can't answer the questions. Okay, so with that, I'm just going to do a quick plug for the Chamber and just say, a lot of good things going on. For 2021, we have a new board. We have Faze Beg as our president, and we have a first VP, Anil Desai, and second VP, Neelam Rain Nega. So with those three at the helm, we're plotting a course for a very good 2021. So far, we've received a COVID fund grant. So we were able to get that kind of support to keep our operations running at least into 2022. So the Chamber's here, and it will be here, and hopefully we're on a path to building a strong foundation, excuse me, so we can grow and make our community a better place. So let's see, what else do I got here? So we want to focus, especially with me being here, I want to focus on building a better calendar. This is the first event actually in 2021. So we're pleased to have Cristina with us. I'm very happy to see you all here. 23 participants is a really good number for us. So I'm very pleased with that. And we are looking to rebuild partnerships. So I'm glad to see, for example, we got the city, a couple council members here. Let me see, we have Mayor Pro Tem Renee Trevino here. Thank you for joining us. Councilwoman Monica Manalo, thank you so much. And if I miss anybody, I'm sorry. So we're working on building partnerships with the city. We have Scott Smith from ABC. It's another great relationship that we're looking to build on. So thank you all for being here and showing your support for the Chamber. Let's see, still to come, there's a lot of work to do, but still to come, I'm looking to redo our website to make it more interactive and user-friendly. So look for that. I'll be pushing that out once that's set. And hopefully that'll bring us into the 21st century. It'll be less clunky and a little bit more user-friendly. A lot of space for improvement there, I think. So yeah, we're just trying to take things one at a time and be kind to ourselves during this pandemic. Last thing I'll say here is we're also looking to be creating more sponsorship opportunities for businesses to get noticed. A question I get all the time is, what does the Chamber do for business? So we want to make sure we're providing a value for our members. So with that said, I'm gonna segue to today's lunch sponsor, Jay Barat. Graciously sponsored lunches, and we had some volunteers make those deliveries, and we were able to also ask if people could take out today. So hopefully you all had a chance to at least get a lunch. So let's see, I'm gonna see if I can't unmute Jay. Jay, you with us? Can you unmute yourself? I don't know. Jay, can you hear us? Let me ask to unmute you. Yeah, you should be able to unmute yourself. Okay, Jay, you got the floor. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Hello, how are you, everybody?
They're all muted, so you're not going to hear anything, but they're doing good.
Okay. I hope everybody got the lunch box And basically, thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve you guys. Basically, the lunchbox, I think there is an instruction on that, how to warm it up. So you guys have to heat it up really good so you can enjoy really nicely. And main thing is purpose of the meeting that, how we can, bring the chamber up and how we increase the more businesses as a member, as well as, the main thing that, as Chris said, that what we can do for the businesses, because that's the most, whoever I'm talking to, they were all asking what you guys are doing for the businesses. So I think we have to do some, the guideline that, okay, these are the things, we all have to discuss about it and what we can offer them. So that's the important part. So they can, join, the more businesses can join with us, and our, the organizations can be more larger. That's what basically the feeling is. So I think, the other people, what they think about it. So we can talk about all these things. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thanks, Jay. Again, thank you very much for your lunch sponsorship. We hope this is not the last.
Yeah, no problem. You
Okay.
don't know what it is. You're most welcome.
Very good. Very good. And, if I may kind of jump ahead, can I ask if you've had any kind of assistance this year from any kind of COVID grants or anything like that?
Basically, we already got the PPP loan, the first loan and second loan, so we can continue paying our employee. And so that's basically we got. We didn't apply for any other things, but we already got those both grant, and we are going okay right now. The business is not improved. I know especially, see, our main goal is a catering business. So the catering business is not there because of all the hotels, all the venues been shut down. So we are right there. The only thing is going on is a takeout. And now recently, again, they open for the outside dining. So basically that's little going on. So that's all basically.
Okay.
But I don't know how long it's going to go, but I think that still it doesn't look good. So, maybe until all the vaccines, everybody get the vaccines and people feel more comfortable to go out.
Great. All right. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate the update. Yeah. So hopefully we can get some time to address those concerns later on. Okay. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker. Let's see. Pleased to welcome Assembly Member Cristina Garcia. Cristina has been called a force of nature, first as a dynamic community organizer and civic activist, and now as a new generation of leader in the California State Legislature. Reflective of the cultural changes of state and the new realities of a diverse population of color, Cristina Garcia has embraced her own communities with a message of hope and inclusion. She's demanded accountability in man-made environmental disasters like Exide, and has pushed to make all levels of government more transparent and accountable to voters. In Sacramento, she's crashed the Good Old Boys Network, and as chair of the California Legislative Women's Caucus, she's leading the way to empower women to take their seat at the table. She's insisted on parity in the tax code by introducing a bill to repeal the sales tax on menstrual products and lead the charge to update the definition of rape in light of Brock Turner's verdict, starting a national dialogue on both issues. She's on a constant mission to educate, empower, and engage, whether that's for constituents of the 58th District, for women, or for disadvantaged communities. She fights for change with a passion to improve the lives of working people and to brighten the path to the future for our next generation. As a vibrant new leader of promise, Cristina hasn't forgotten where she came from, but with purpose, she also knows where California should be going. And with that, we'll ask you to unmute yourself, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And Jay, thank you for lunch. I got it delivered, so I look forward to enjoying it after the Zoom. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for being here today. I'm going to be brief on some of the bills that I'm carrying. So I wanted to give you some updates on what's going on in the Capitol, some bills we're going to be voting on Monday, schools reopening and stuff like that, that I know a lot of you guys have questions on. And so I look forward to your questions as well. It's always great to be here. And it's always great to see a friendly face. Chris, you're still Team Garcia in our hearts. And so I've been busy. We've been back at work since the first week of January. I've been working in the same 3 pillars that I always work on. Good government. We are introducing a bill to try to create a local agency that would keep failing water systems public to keep our quality of water up, but also keep our rates affordable out there. This is as a result of a UCLA study that came out making this recommendation for the region. This region has some of the highest water rates in the state. And so we're trying to address some of that along the way. We are also been working on environmental justice. And so I've introduced AB1 to reform the Department of Toxics, which is charged with keeping our community safe and cleaning up brownfields and so forth. And so we are trying to reform that. Exide is an example of a plant that contaminated this community for 30 years, but it's also an example of a department that has failed at the state. And so we're trying to make sure we don't have another Exide. And then in my women's pillar, I continue to work on empowering women. And right now we're working to expand access to menstrual products in all public spaces. And so we've introduced that. The country of Scotland took charge and became a leader last year in this space. And so we're trying to follow their lead now, even though we initially started the discussion here in California. And so I have more bills in those pillars and a few other things going out there. We'll be announcing our winner of There Ought to Be a Law soon, which will be an idea that came from the district out there as well. But a lot of my focus has been in the Capitol with how do we help small businesses? How do we help schools reopen? Really write about the mental health of our students and negotiating through different capacities with the governor. And so on Monday, we will be voting on a set of bills, SB 87 and AB 80. It's an economic stimulus of about $9 billion. Within that, we're trying to help our lowest income family members who maybe haven't gotten any stimulus out there, undocumented, for example, even though their taxpayers haven't been eligible for much. But we do have multiple $1 billion set aside to help small businesses. We have our California grants of up to $25,000. I know some of you applied and didn't qualify. I want to encourage you to reach out to our office so we can try to put you in touch with folks to figure out how you can maybe reapply and hopefully be successful the second time around. We are putting $2.1 billion into that program. Part of it is that we ran out of money when people were first applying, and so we're adding additional dollars in there. And so maybe your application was fine, it was just a matter of timing. And so please encourage you to follow up. We are not the experts in that space, but we can connect you with folks who are liaisons to help you in that process out there. So that will be coming in. We are also voting on AB 80, which will allow businesses that got PPP loans, the federal PPP loans, or the EIDL loans, to be able to deduct up to $150,000 in the expenses. And we're also looking to waive fees and licenses for restaurants, for bars, for barbers, for cosmetologists out there from the state level as well. There will be money for food banks, for diapers out there as well. And we're looking to also help our childcare providers out there who are struggling with the increased costs as they're having to now keep kids separate. And so before they could all share supplies and toys, and now we need one of everything for the kids out there. So that's also included in there as well. Most recently, we've asked the governor to provide us a list of businesses in our district that have gotten these California grants. We have concerns about equity. We have concerns about whether or not, they're being distributed across the state. And so we are trying to make sure. And so I want to make sure that AB 58 gets its fair share of the pie. And oftentimes it feels like we don't, and so I'm prepared to go fight for my constituents to make sure we're not left behind with these opportunities that we have out there. We have also been negotiating on schools reopening, and the governor and the legislature have been at odds. But today around 10:45 in the morning, the governor made an announcement that starting March 1st, 10% of the vaccines will be set aside for education employees, teachers, and classified employees, so we can reopen our schools. Our goal is that we're able to reopen a lot of our schools come April. We're starting to have our main focus on K through 6. We want to make sure all of our kids are able to go back to school. We know that there is mental health issues that our children are dealing with. We know that our parents are struggling out there. The teachers are struggling with the online. And so we're doing all we can. And so the legislature has been asking for, since December, that teachers get prioritized with vaccines. And so that's finally going to be happening. The dosages have been increasing from the federal level at a quick rate. They are currently stuck though with the winter storm. And so our next dosages haven't come in. So you've been hearing about our super pots closing, it's not because we don't have vaccines allocated, it's because the winter storm has stuff stuck in Tennessee, literally. And so we're trying to do all we can to get that here so we continue to do that. But on a weekly basis, we're expecting about 75,000 dosages to be guaranteed to be going to education employees. And so we think by April, we would have targeted most of them so that schools can reopen. We're also giving the green light in counties that have 14 cases per 1,000 of COVID to start youth sports again. We have about 20 counties there. And at the rate at which we're going, we're expecting all counties to get there hopefully in the next month or so as we continue to do vaccines along the way. And so a lot of this has been negotiations in the background. The legislature introduced a bill to kind of force the governor's hands to the fire to get something done and prioritize the vaccines for the teachers. That's been our number one priority. We want to reopen schools, but we want to make sure that families are safe. And in our estimate, we can make this happen. And so happy that that announcement was made this morning as well. Happy that we're going to be moving this money out for small businesses as soon as possible because we already have a system. We expect that come mid-March, hopefully individuals are able to start applying for these additional dollars that will be available. And so this is all happening on Monday at the state, so it'll be a good day. The last thing I want to remind you is that California has a payroll tax assistance for employers experiencing a hardship as a result of COVID-19 for a 60-day extension. And you can reach out to our office so we can help you out. There is a written request that must take place, but you can reach out to our office and we can put you in touch with folks that could help you with that. But, and so that's, I think that's the main update I want to give you. While I have legislation that's important because I believe that we need to multitask and the pandemic won't be here with us forever. The pandemic has been our number one concern in the Capitol and where a lot of our issues have been going. Last month, we passed renters relief at about $2.6 billion. That's so that we could pay landlords directly for back rents. So we want to make sure that we're both helping out the renters, but we're also helping out the landlords so they could pay their mortgages and their bills and not lose their properties. And so it hasn't been as quick as we've needed. I know that folks are really struggling out there and livelihoods are in danger and at risk, but we are trying to move as quickly as possible along the way. And so I do appreciate all the community members who have reached out. Their experience helps us figure out what we need to push for, right? We're not going to have your experience. We're not going to have your priority in mind if you don't tell us. And so I want to encourage you to continue to be those advocates for yourself, whether it's through the chamber or just yourself calling our office. It gives us direction of what we need to push for, what levers we need to pull. And so I appreciate it when you don't yell at my staff. It's easier. But I also understand that we've been under a long traumatic experience for the last year. It's stressful. And so we try to take that into perspective. But we take your concerns seriously and we try to do everything we can to help you as an individual, but also to take that to advocate for changes at the Capitol. And so that's my update that I wanted to share with you today. Again, my office is available. All my employees are working remotely, but we are all available and working long hours to connect you to whatever resources are out there.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina. Appreciate that. I know a few people have submitted some questions prior to the event, and I actually, because I know what they are, I actually think that you touched on them very well already. So I think we'll leave a little bit of room for people to ask additional questions to the chat. So everyone, if you see I just sent a message, you should be able to submit any questions to the chat. But in the meantime, I'll ask you a couple things here. So you've already touched on SB 878080 about the $9 billion economic stimulus. I had a question from Scott Smith at ABC. He's asking more specifically about SB 86 and AB 86. He says they're slated to pass the legislature and not completely aligned with the governor's Safe Schools for All plan. What are your thoughts on the potential for a deal with the governor and what areas may possibly change?
So one of our priorities with our legislation was to guarantee that we had vaccines available to teachers and they had the option. Now, if a teacher chooses not to vaccinate and the school district wants them to return to work, they're going to have to return to work or take a leave, an unpaid leave. And so we wanted to make sure that we were giving teachers an option, but also if they declined, that it didn't affect the school's ability to plan accordingly. So that was one of our things in the difference between the governor and our proposal. Today's announcement then aligns the governor's proposal with us a little bit better. We also want to make sure that school districts have access to money and that they have it up front and not after the matter. And so that's been another point where we're differing. I would say that this morning's announcement is a good sign that we're getting closer out there. The legislature, especially the assembly, has been really adamant that we must reopen schools. We must provide the resources to help schools be successful out there. And we must protect both the teachers, the classified employees, and the families out there. And so I think we're getting closer. I'm more optimistic today than I was 2 days ago on reaching a deal with the governor to make sure our schools have the resources they need to reopen. We know that if our economy is going to get back off the ground, parents need to be able to go to work. And if they're not able to walk into the work room physically, we know that we need them to be able to focus on work and not on schooling their children out there, in addition to they're not professional educators. And so we want to be successful. Schools have to be our number one priority, and that's been our priority in the assembly. And I think we're getting closer with the legislature and the governor.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see. So you've already touched on, quite a few things. I appreciate it. I'm wondering if we can delve a little bit more into your bill, AB1.
Mhm.
I mean, for me personally, as a former staffer of yours, it's kind of surprising that you got the very first assembly bill across the desk. So I'm wondering, your thoughts on that, and again, if you could reiterate why this is so important to you.
So Chris is talking a little bit of inside baseball. Usually the first 20 assembly bills and the first 20 Senate bills are reserved for the legislature and for like our number one priorities for the legislative year. And so I like to think I got Assembly Bill 1 because it's going to be our number one priority in the assembly at least. And it actually, I will be honest, that's not really why it happened this year. COVID has affected a lot of things, including the way we operate in the Capitol. We got sworn in for our new 2-year term on December 7th, and we had to do it in person. And I had to be in a room with close to 80 legislators and some staff members. And while we had social distance, while we had masks on, it was inside. I take care of my uncle and my parents who are very vulnerable. And so as soon as they gavelled down and we finished, I ran out of that building because I wanted to get away from everybody. And so I ran out of the building. We were at the arena, and I went to the Capitol to introduce my first bill. And I literally was there helping them open the floor so I could introduce a bill. And so my paranoia got me the first assembly bill. Because of COVID, the assembly did not reserve the first 20 bills for themselves. That said, the speaker has been very supportive of AB1. We share this corridor out here that has a lot of pollution from both mobile and stationary sources. We share the exit area where over 10,000 homes have been contaminated with toxic levels of lead that affect our health, affects our children's development. We're in the process of trying to clean that up. That company has gone bankrupt, which basically means the state now, the taxpayers are on the hook for paying for that cleanup to the tune of $1 billion. These are $1 billion that I'd rather be using to support my community in other way, including my small businesses. But we want to protect that health. And so we want to make sure we have a department that prevents another exit from happening, that prevents in a situation where the state is on the hook if a company goes bankrupt. And so we've been working on this bill now for 5 years. We're hoping this year the governor finally works with us. They have been working with us. We hope that this year we actually reach an agreement on this issue out there. I think it's hard for the governor to imagine the level of contamination in my district sometimes. I know when Jerry Brown came, he was pretty surprised at the amount of contamination. And when we finished the tour, he told me, oh, this is a toxic dump. This is a wasteland. And that's how I refer to my district. And it was really hard to see because it's like, well, this is not a wasteland. This has 500,000 constituents that are hardworking, that are taxpayers and are resilient. And we owe it to them to improve the situation, to protect their health and make sure they have, quality of life. out there. And so he actually became a great partner and has been visited the district multiple times. We are now working to make sure Governor Newsom realizes that also. I will say he had committed to visit us last year before COVID happened. And I'm hoping once we get past COVID, we could get him down here so you can see our reality, what we live with, but also the reality of the resiliency we have here with our community members.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely an important issue. One I know we were trying to get a little bit more, how do you say, a little bit more engagement on in our neck of the woods. Okay, great. So I have a question again from a participant. So in Artesia, we have a lot of office buildings available for rent. We have a lot of vacant stores and properties. So I'm wondering, do you imagine or do you know if there's any kind of statewide assistance programs to incentivize new businesses, starting a new business these days?
Not off the top of my head, but I can definitely take that question. I know someone from my team is here and we could research that and send the information for you to share with your members out there. But we do know that that's part of the economic development. We're expecting that across the state, maybe about 30% of those commercial spaces are going to be empty. And we know that it's important for our communities that we figure out that situation. Vacant spaces we know are an issue with life, but also, when we have businesses there, they're providing the tax base for our local governments to be able to provide the services that we need. They're providing the jobs for our local community members out there. And so we are starting to focus that way. I'm the chair of the Women's Caucus again, and the Women's Caucus specifically is focusing on the fact that women have been disproportionately affected economically during this pandemic. And so how do we incentivize the job and business opportunities for women, especially women of color who have been the hardest hit. And so we do expect that in the near future, the Women's Caucus will be asking for a budget ask that will include things like retraining and skilling up for women entrepreneurs. And so that is a focus that we're going to be looking at. So I think maybe in a month, I'll have a much better answer for you, both of what we know it's available, but how we want to push and supplement that on behalf of the Women's Caucus.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. And thank you for using that, I'll say, position to also work for our own residents. I mean, I know that's something you can exact change on statewide, but to be able to make sure that AD 58, to borrow your words, gets its fair share of the pie, right? That's very, very important. So on that note, may I ask, do you have any current projects you're working on to benefit the city of Artesia, or any institutions that we have here?
Not too long ago, we did we kicked off the year by doing a big food drive and targeting the Cerritos Artesia community, and a lot of turnout. We had thousands of families show up. We had to turn away some families, just a lot of need out there. And so we are looking to see where we're going to be coming back. We are open to working with community members. We've had, the council members call us to say, hey, we have this toy drive. Can you help us with food for 100 families? We've been working with the local wives and so forth. And so I would say that while we don't announce it all, a lot of times it comes from people speaking up, and then we say, let's figure out where we have the resources. I have a staff member that likes to say we're Make-A-Wish in the office, especially during this pandemic. We've gotten calls for things like toilet paper at times for our seniors, toiletries, right? And then we get other more urgent calls for help out there. And so we try to step up in different ways. And I do have Viviana, who covers this region, who's been busy on casework and a lot of EDD support and PUA support out there for our individuals as well. And so I would think right this second, it hasn't been specific for any of my cities. It's been just how much, getting through casework to help our constituents navigate a system that I know is broken. And we are constantly trying to fix those problems, but then make sure that we also have a bridge for the individual along the way while we're trying to figure out how to fix a problem. And so I would encourage you that if you have individuals that, are struggling with something, have them reach out. We are not experts on fixing your problems, but we are experts at finding you those fixers. and connecting you to those fixers out there, and making sure that they don't ignore you. And so we can't fix what we don't know. I would just recommend you pick up the phone, and we will do all we can to put you in touch with the right people.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. And I can attest to that personally. I used to do casework for you and for the benefit of the residents. So I know what that's like. And that also, I think, points to the importance of organizations, community organizations, nonprofits, and that's what I'm envisioning for the chamber, really, is to be kind of a way to plug in to the network, right? Whether if they're asking, for toilet paper or, paper towels is one thing. But, there are members that we have that have stepped up to the plate. Like, for example, Jay, Barat, he partnered with Cerritos College to do a food drive as well, and that was many months ago now. So, it's good to see businesses stepping up to the plate and filling that void. So we're very happy. And again, that's what I'm looking for the chamber to kind of serve that role, to plug us in. And we also don't know what the problems are unless people tell us, and we will work to find the right answer. So I think
Can I say something, Chris? When we do things like our small business grants, we rely on the chambers to get the information out there. We rely on the chambers to tell us this is how the program isn't working, or how the application process is too cumbersome out there. And I think you guys have a great benefit in having Chris Craig working with you, who has worked with state agencies and still has a lot of those relationships, whether it's directly or through our office or the senator's office, to try to figure out how to advocate for you. And so when you talk about earlier, what do we provide as a chamber? You provide information and a network, but you also provide access to folks that could help fix problems for you. And we can't always fix the problems, but I will say that at one of these state of the state luncheons, I had a business who was trying to get a liquor license, had applied and had been told it'd be a couple of months, and it had been like 6-7 months. And staff looked into that, and it turns out that application had been applied. It just had to be moved to a different desk because the person had an emergency and was suddenly on leave for a month, and it hadn't been moved. And so that's the power of, I think, the chamber and the network that you guys create, of being able to connect people to those problem solvers, or say, hey, you're struggling, there's these grants, why don't you apply for them? And people come and say, oh, I'm not going to get them. I never get them. I don't know anyone that gets them. And that's true. Sometimes you need a navigator to tell you how to best do that. But I do think you have an asset in your executive director to help you navigate that. And then the rest of you can learn with him, so you can tell other businesses, this is part of what we provide. Government can be cumbersome at times. I apologize for that. I wish it wasn't, and I wish you didn't always have to call a legislative office, but half of the work we do is that, and we do it with a lot of pleasure, because those are your tax dollars at work.
Definitely. Thank you. Great. So here's a question again from a participant, Saris Rotundo. So they're asking specifically about a couple pieces of legislation that I don't know about, AB 613 and AB 367. I think the question here more pertinently is, how do we support legislation in general as an active citizen, just as an individual? How would you recommend we get involved on that level? And they may have missed this, but do you mind reiterating what you were saying about support or protection for teachers that may not be comfortable returning?
Can you repeat to me AB 367 and what else?
AB 367 and AB 613.
Okay.
Yeah,
so AB 367 is our menstrual equity bill, which would require that government-owned spaces, let me be clear, these are government-owned spaces, provide free menstrual products in the bathrooms in whatever capacity they would like. So that would be our schools, our universities, our parks, stuff like that. And the best way you can support that is by writing a letter of support and submitting it to the committee. You can reach out to our office or go on our website, and they'll give you instructions on how to do that. And then talking about it on social media, when there's public excitement around something, we as members pay attention. Just like you, we spend way too much time on our social media, interacting, tracking what's going on out there. And even more so now during the pandemic, it's our only way to connect. And so we track that stuff. Some of us engage and respond, some of us don't, but we are all tracking. I promise you that much out there. And so that's part of how you can help. as well. It's helpful when individuals write letters, but it's really helpful when organizations write letters. So if the chamber's out there writing a letter of support, that's really helpful as well. Or if you're part of another organization, then writing a letter of support is really helpful as well. And so that would be the best way to support this. Getting organizations you work with to also support is the best way to help with legislation. I'm not sure what AB 613 is, but that would, again, my recommendation for you is that you follow that process of writing a letter. Bills go through a policy committee. This year, that will be happening between March and April mostly. They go through then a fiscal committee, and then they come to our next house at the end of May, and they go through the same process, and they have to come back to us before August is over, and then we wrap up at the end of August, approximately mid-September actually. And so there's multiple steps. At each step, you could write a letter. Your letter should automatically move on, but it doesn't. And you might ask yourself, well, if I already wrote a letter, why do I need to write a letter again? Well, at each step, our bill gets amended and it gets changed. And maybe you're not going to be happy with the amendments anymore. So while you might have supported the bill in round one, you no longer support it in round two. And so we don't want to assume that you support all the amendments, which is why we ask you to write a letter for each step along the way. And so I know sometimes it feels cumbersome, but sometimes our bills take really drastic turns, and it might now suddenly go against the principles that you were supporting.
Or even like a gut and amend, right? You know.
Okay, so a gut and amend is when so you know, I was a teacher, so I use all of my comparisons to being a teacher. A gut and amend is when you have a project, and then like last minute the kid decides like, oh, well, I was working on something about the missions, instead going to scrap all of that the night before and turn in something about the planets in the universe, and like that's not what you were expecting, but it's just like last minute change it on you, and then you're like, oh, what do I do? And we don't have a lot of time to discuss it at the legislature. It's a move often done board of leadership and the governor when we need to hurry up and do something.
Gotcha. Thank you. Let's see, I've gone through most of the questions submitted to the chat, and just for sake of time, we're nearing 1 o'clock. So I'm going to kind of shift gears a minute, and I thank you that this has mostly been about business and your support for our local community. But I do want to take a time, since, you know, I kind of build this as a more casual or intimate conversation. I did want to ask, you know, if you're reading any books currently or listening to any podcasts, maybe you can give us an idea of you know, what's going on that you're staying tuned to outside of the legislature.
I'm not listening to any podcasts. My friends and I started a reading club. Every quarter we're getting together on Zoom, and we are reading different books that have to be by bilingual authors out there, and so it's a great way to connect to my friends out there. And I am really behind on, at the end of this month, we're meeting again, and I'm really behind on our book. And so I will have to send that to you. I'm sure it's going to be a great book. I'm going to do some fast reading this weekend.
Yeah, very good.
But I will say, you know, it's been busy. I think there's times where I have a lot of free time, some years, and some years I don't. I think a lot of us deal with different things at different times. And so my life for the last year has been around hospital visits and doctor's appointments with my uncle. He has had a rough health year, nothing related to COVID out there. And so I've gotten to really know the health system quite a bit and the many barriers that are out there. And I hit my head against the wall on a regular basis, and I feel so incompetent. And I'm like, wow, I'm an assembly member. Like, I'm supposed to know better, and I'm struggling to get the services that I need for him half the time. And so it has given me a whole new perspective. We legislate on experience, and it's given me a whole new perspective out there. He moved in with my parents about 5 years ago, and so it was pretty stable until this last year. So I haven't had too much free time. That is, you know, I think we have to remember to humanize ourselves. And so those are some of the challenges that I've been dealing with for the last year here with my family. His most recent hospital stay was 2 weeks ago. And so we got him home. He has more lives than a cat, we like to say. So it's been part why I don't have in my head right now a book I've been reading, but normally I like to read books. I like to go on hikes. I like to travel. And between the pandemic and my uncle's health, we haven't done that. But let me just tell you, like, I am blessed. I have a job.
Mhm.
I have a great network. I have access to resources, and that's never lost on me. And I know so many people out there don't have those blessings right now. And so I'm just trying to figure out how I share the blessings and the access to resources I have with our community right now.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Yeah. And to echo what you're saying, I want to say to most everyone here, you know, Christina is a huge asset for our community. I mean, and you all know that I've worked for her in the past, you know, and I have nothing but wonderful things to say. You know, if she's always had her door open to us as a chamber or and to us as individuals, and her office is there to help. I mean, part of the struggle in this area is, or should I say, you know, it's a fight that needs to be fought every day. You know, we need to educate, empower, and engage our folks, and that's something she's instilled in me. And you know, heck, she motivated me so much. I moved to the district, and I live here, and I work here now. You know, so you know, there's a lot of work to be done. I want to thank you all for your time in listening to us today, and hopefully you got a little bit more insight, you know, as to who Christina Garcia is and how she's working for us.
I have one last thing. So it looks like I have
Sure.
a couple minutes.
Okay.
SB 613 is a
Thanks.
social media bill that I introduced. And so I have been watching social media expand, and it's become so much of our life, even more so during this pandemic, that we have to be socially distant. And we have a lot of influencers making a lot of money out there, peddling a bunch of different things like diet pills and teas and so forth. And so what I have asked is that if you are monetizing your social media accounts or your YouTubes and you're making money off of that, that if you are photoshopping your images, that there's a tag letting folks know. I want there to be honest advertisement, honest business out there. And so, you know, I am not banning anything. You could continue to sell whatever you want to sell and promote whatever you want to promote. I'm just asking that you are honest about your images that you have out there. A lot of us have young boys and girls out there who are getting a lot of this thrown at them and are having social dysmorphia, are having issues about their bodies and loving themselves, and a lot of stigma out there that they carry into adulthood. I mean, we had it too, we just didn't have it as much, you know, and so we are just trying to have a conversation out there with folks about the mental health. And then I think just the responsibility we have on social media. We have a lot of social norms, and we try to be decent human beings when we have each other in person. But then we get online and we have these platforms where we could be anonymous, and we say some really nasty things, and we forget how to be respectful, or, you know, we forget like what reality looks like. And so I hope this is part of a bigger discussion about how social media can be a great asset and a great tool. Being digital is great. There's folks that maybe couldn't show up before, but now could show up online, right? So it could be an amazing tool, but how do we make sure that we are using it responsibly out there? And so excited for that bill out there. I'm excited that someone asked me about that. It's an idea that I've been having for a little while, the discussion that I want to have. Mark Zuckerberg said that we do need to have more control of the internet, and he said that the government should help. And so I am taking him up on his word. Let's see if that's really true or was just something he said.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, that's good insight. I know you have quite a few bills. Can you tell us how many you've introduced?
I will have 19 bills introduced at the end of today. To the deadline. Some of those bills will probably not move this year, and will become what we call 2-year bills to give us a little more time to work on it during the 2-year legislative session, when we're putting down flags to start discussions out there. We will be limited to about a dozen bills leaving each other's houses. The Senate will not take up more than that for each of us because we have capacity issues. Under COVID, we can't meet as often. And so by the time May rolls around, I should be down to about a dozen.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And just to end, you know, I got a couple notes from Viviana here, so I got to make sure I'm doing this good. So we want to do like, we're going to leave space for one member from the chamber to share any kind of positive reflections or you know, any positive thoughts that they've taken away from today. Do we have? Let's see. Do we have? Let's see. Do we have Rain? Rain, do you think you can jump in here? So Rain is the owner of IT Pros, right? Tech Builders. Yeah, Tech Builders located in Downey. Can you hear us? Okay. Can you? I think you're unmuted now. I don't think I can hear you.
Now,
There
can
you are.
hear me?
There you are. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, means I love this lunch on first thing. I am already a big fan of Christina because I met her in Downey when we was running together for Alpha Run, and then I get chance to be close to her and I come to know about her. So I'm really a big fan of her. And I totally agree about the last thing she raised up about the technology. And I want to say the same thing, like use the technology with the responsibility. And we see so many people coming to this location, to the store, and the old people, and they get scared of things like, okay, what happened to my phone? Somebody hacked it. Somebody hacked my Facebook and accounts. They are very scared. Even the phone calls, they talk about like we got phone calls, and then somebody asked for ransom money. They lock their account. Technology is changed a lot within a few months, like within a year. I know we improved so many things, but again, people are misusing also. So I totally agree with her. I'm so glad that she raised that thing. Very good point, Christina. I totally agree with you. Like you go online with the responsibility. That's especially the teenager. They are like just open to the different world, and they have really soft hearted, soft mind, and people are just talking to them like, okay, you are so cute, and then they fall into that because psychological, they are dealing with so many things now in these days, like no friends, just be alone at home, cranky parents because there's less money, and it's really hard for parents to take care of everything. So it's all the way around, like what we're talking about. And then children's, especially the teenagers, in my opinion, we have to keep an eye on that one. So don't be within you. I know I'm the technology person, but again, pay attention. And then with instead of your stress, just look at their stress. They look innocent, but anybody can get into their heart and in their mind and then spoil it. That's what I'm trying to say. Just pay attention a little bit time to teenagers or young people around. Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity to say something about technology.
Yeah, thanks, Rain. Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay, great. And I think we have just time for maybe one more, if I may, if that's okay with you, Christina. I am going to call on Frank Bellaspirito.
Good afternoon, Christina. You always do a great job in my eyes. I'm very proud of you, and I always speak highly of you. I do need some help, though, and I think business owners. Is there anything that we might be missing or any code that protects business owners? Say they have to vacate one building and move into another. What I'm hearing is that the landlords are charging them a year's worth of rent up front. Are we missing some code, or is there something that is that I don't want to use the word legal, but is that a proper thing to do under the COVID-19? Are there any protections for that?
That sounds alarming, Frank. Viviana shared with me and says, Edgar, I promise to get you an answer right away on that. And maybe that's potentially something that we need to can bring up as we're continuing with negotiations. While we're doing the stimulus package on Monday, it won't be our last bit of work we need to do. And so you might have identified a problem out there for us to help negotiate in the Capitol for some relief of some sort. That doesn't sound appropriate.
I appreciate your help in that area. I've got some friends that I could put you in touch with that have experiencing that. And I've let them know we've got a great ear, a great person that can help us out if we can just get the question.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. And we will probably ask for some of that just so that it's usually helpful. And if they're not in my district, that's helpful because like I say, it's not unique to my district. It's happening in other districts too.
Cool. Very good. Right. Excited to see that. Thank you, guys. And all right. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and maybe just ask everyone to pose for a nice little screenshot so I can share maybe online just to say that we did today's event. And again, on our way out, we'd like to thank Assemblywoman Garcia and Jay Barat for sponsoring lunch. We hope you all enjoyed and found this informative. And stay tuned, more things to come from the Chamber this year. So with that, let's give a big smile and I'll take a quick pic. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Everyone be
Take care.
safe.